Our final two candidates tonight, Jared Hudson and Barry Moore, candidates for U.S. Senate here in Alabama. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Welcome. We're going to start with 1 minute each on your opening remarks. And Barry, why don't we start with you?
JT, thank you, and thank everybody for being here tonight. JT, it's not true what they say. My wife, Heather, says he doesn't have a face for radio, so thank you for being here for hosting this. I actually am I serve in Alabama's 1st congressional district, the 6th most conservative district in the nation, and so I served 2 terms in the state legislature, went in there to fight the first Republican majority since Reconstruction, and I developed a record as one of the most conservative guys in the Alabama legislature. And through that process, I endorsed a guy by the name of Donald Trump in 2015, and I was walking away from politics, served 2 terms, was done, and President Trump's team said, Barry, would you go to Washington, D.C. and engage in the fight in Congress? So President Trump and I have been in Washington, D.C. for the exact same amount of time, 5.5 years. So I went in 4 years ahead of him. He left in 20. We've been there a year and a half together fighting for the America First agenda. And so tonight we're going to talk about our record, and we appreciate you being here and being a member of House Freedom Caucus and being in the fight for you folks. When the president called and they said, hey, Coach is running for the Senate and we need a trusted ally conservative, they asked us to step up. So thank you for being here, and we're happy to do it.
Thank you, Barry.
My name is Jared Hudson, and I'm running to be your next Republican senator from the great state of Alabama. I'm going to quickly tell you the 3 most important things about me. Number 1, I'm a Christian conservative. Jesus is God incarnate. If you believe like I believe, share him with the world unashamedly. Number 2, I'm a 7th-generation Alabama family man. I have a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful little girls I'm raising right here in the state of Alabama. Number 3, I'm a United States Navy SEAL sniper. I'm a law enforcement officer, still as an investigator with Blount County Sheriff's Office, and I'm the CEO of a nonprofit that combats human trafficking, in particular child exploitation. And these are the 3 things that define Jared Hudson: my faith, my family, and the service that I've had the opportunity to provide. The reason I'm running for the U.S. Senate is because for far too long we've had career politicians that climb a ladder to elevate themselves as opposed to the people that they're elected to represent. This position belongs to you, the people of Alabama, and that's why I'm running, to tear down the club and put the power back in the hands of we the people.
All right, Jared, thank you very much. All right, since Barry, we started with you on the opening remarks. Jared, why don't we start with you first on the questions? As a Navy SEAL, you've seen firsthand what it takes to defend this country. What do you believe Washington is getting wrong, if anything, about national security right now?
Well, one of the biggest things is during my time as a SEAL, we saw the global war on terror, which put our young men and our young women in harm's way for far too long. We have a bunch of pencil-neck politicians who have never been in a fist fight, much less a gunfight, sending our kids to war. I know because I was one of them. And for far too long, these neocons have controlled this country, and we have to make sure that we elect representatives that understand the cost every time they sign a piece of paper to send somebody to war. That's the biggest thing it taught me. Yesterday was Memorial Day. It's not about veterans on Memorial Day. It's about those who gave their last breath so that you could take your next. And that's what the SEAL teams taught me, is there are men and women far greater than us that gave everything so that we could be standing here today having this conversation and electing our next U.S. Senator from this state, the state of Alabama. That's what they get wrong.
Thank you, Jared. Barry, do you support a total ban on stock trading by members of Congress, including their spouses and immediate family, with mandatory blind trusts and real penalties for these violations?
Yes, absolutely. I do not trade stocks, and I will support a ban on all politicians trading stocks, because a lot of times in those situations they get committee information. And you know, most of your friends, my friends, will tell me they haven't heard anything, but too often people like Nancy Pelosi or whoever it is makes a trade, or they short a stock, and they see that sort of thing. And we don't want that in Washington, D.C. And to restore that trust, as a member of House Freedom Caucus, we've been pretty conservative. We've been the fighters, and there's only 40 of us out of 435 members, and so we're inside the fight. But I can tell you this, we're not part of the system. We're the people outside of the system. They're trying to restore trust to you for your government. And as we go in that fight, that's how I've got the highest liberty score in the Alabama delegation. My number one job is to protect your liberty. And to, as you watch over time, as we see people who, when they commit a crime, we lock them up, guys. The one thing we do in America, if you commit a crime, we take away your freedom. Why on earth would we elect people who would go to Washington, D.C. and voluntarily give away your freedom. I got a 96 Liberty score. Coach has got a 95. Nobody in delegation has been that close to protecting your liberty. So we're in the fight for your freedom. Restoring confidence is part of that, though, JT. Making sure that we don't have people trading stocks. Make sure that the people that are doing the business of the American people can be trusted by the electorate.
Thank you, Barry. Jared, veterans in Jefferson County, Jared? Veterans in Jefferson and Shelby counties often struggle with VA delays. What's the first VA reform you would like to introduce?
Now, I appreciate that question, JT, but before I start, and I appreciate that Congressman Moore has a great Liberty score. I haven't had the opportunity to earn a Liberty score, but I can tell you that I've scored 21-0 against the Taliban over 60 combat operations in Afghanistan. And there's nothing more liberating than that when it comes to the war fighters that we're called to protect. And one of the biggest things that we see is we subsidize health care and everything else for illegal immigrants for other countries, and we don't take care of our veterans here in the state of Alabama. I'm a product of the VA, and praise God that I have not had any issues. The Birmingham VA has taken unbelievable care of me, but there are veterans that deal with denial for care. They deal with denial for getting repaid for the doctors that they go to. We have to make sure that we push legislation that codifies caring for our veterans as opposed to subsidizing the Taliban at the tune of $40 million a week, or the waste, fraud, and abuse that goes through SNAP benefits to Learning Centers in Minnesota, or subsidizing health care for illegal immigrants. We are called to take care of those who stood in the gap for us, and as your next senator, that is what I will seek to do, to make sure we stand for the war fighters who stood for us.
Thank you, Jerry. Barry, without mentioning any endorsements, what legislation have you personally sponsored while serving in Congress that advanced the conservative agenda?
Well, a couple of things. Just a few weeks ago, I dropped the Americans First Immigration Act. It's the Immigration Accountability Project. I'm rated #1 in the nation on immigration accountability. Codifies 5 of President Trump's policies, executive orders on immigration. For one example, is that we're going to do away with chain migration. You can't just come here and bring 27 family members. You can bring your spouse and dependent children. Another thing that it does that's very important is we have right now what we call a lottery. It's an immigration lottery. We just let people, it's a diversity lottery. So with this act that we're dropping right now, it's going to actually require that folks contribute to our economy. We're not required by our Constitution, guys, to allow anybody to come to this country. So as we begin to codify President Trump's executive orders, that's the reason I'm #1 in the nation on Immigration Accountability Project, because I have dropped 5 of President Trump's executive orders that are currently being voted on, will be moving through as law for the United States of America to secure the U.S. southern border. The border under Joe Biden was basically a Disney fast pass. People poured across here. And as we're cleaning up this mess, it's important that we actually codify President Trump's executive orders, because the next guy with a pen and phone is going to undo everything we've done if we do not codify these executive orders. So I got 5 bills in that one bill, or 5 executive orders in that one bill, JT, that literally will codify 5 of President Trump's immigration reform issues.
All right. Thank you, Barry. Jared, a lot of voters are looking for someone outside the political establishment. How would you bring accountability and transparency to a system many believe is broken?
Well, because first and foremost, it's you, the voters, that elect somebody to go represent them. The story of Daniel in the Bible is a great example of this. Daniel changed 4 kings and 2 kingdoms because he set in his heart the way he would go. He would not dishonor his God, and he would seek justice and righteousness for the people that he was serving, and he was serving them as a slave. The first thing is to make sure that you go in and set in your heart the way that you'll go. I have the benefit of not being endorsed by anybody, not receiving any PAC money with the exception from the SEAL PAC, which supports Navy SEALs running for office and other military members. Every bit of support that we've received has been from individuals from the state of Alabama or outside of the state of Alabama that want to send a warrior to Washington. That's the first step. The second step, making sure that when you get there, you don't forget where home is. When you move to D.C., you become D.C. But my wife right there and my 3 beautiful little girls will stay right here in Alabama. And home is where your heart is, and I can tell you my heart is going to be with them. Making sure that you don't become part of the swamp when you're taking on the swamp is of the utmost importance, and that's how you can make a change. Yes, one man can make a change. Finally, you build coalitions. You build coalitions with like-minded people so that you can work as a team to tear down the club and put the power back in the hands of we the people.
Thank you, Jared. Barry, what do you see as the biggest threat to Alabama families coming from Washington right now, and how would you address it?
Well, I think one of the things, obviously, is open borders. I think we're doing a good job under President Trump of cleaning that up. We've got to address inflation, obviously. There's a cost to living in America. There's a cost to what we do. And the number one body in the nation that creates inflation is Washington, D.C. They print money like drunk sailors, and that's an insult to drunk sailors. But as we put downward pressure on spending, that slows inflation. That's why when you talk about your scores, guys, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. Look at my record. As one of the most conservative members, constantly putting downward pressure on spending, joining the House Freedom Caucus, cutting the debt, $1.5 trillion in the big, beautiful bill. As we put downward pressure, that makes it affordable for U.S. citizens and people of Alabama. And workforce development. We just brought Hadrian to Alabama. 1,000 new jobs. We've got Lilly just invested $6 billion. It was the delegation that brought Space Command to Alabama. When you talk about your kids coming back to Alabama, when you talk about what do, we open the economy for Alabama. And we got land, labor, and climate conducive to grow the economy, but relationships with the White House, relationships with the president, when I say, sir, we need this in Alabama. We will provide the labor force. We will do what we need to do to meet the needs of this country, whether it's in defense or economic growth. And guys, we're looking at a $4 billion investment right now in Baldwin County. Money is coming to Alabama being invested. So what we do to help Alabama is bring high-paying jobs. We want our kids and grandkids to come back here and live close to home and raise those children so we can have an impact on their lives. And by creating an economy, opening up Alabama's economy and having the relationships with the White House to say, sir, Alabama will not let you down. We will do what we need to do to support the economy, bring the jobs to Alabama. That's what we're going to do.
All right, Barry, thank you very much. Now it's time for our closing remarks from our final 2 candidates. Jared, you go first, then Barry, you get to close second.
Well, like I said, my name is Jared Hudson, and I'm running to be your next Republican senator from our great state of Alabama. With that being said, if you don't take away anything tonight, remember what I said about Christ and Christ crucified. But the most important thing right now, outside of your relationship with Jesus Christ, is who you elect on June 16th to be your next senator from our state. Our freedom's rooted in 3 boxes: the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box. Take it from a guy who's been to a country where the cartridge box is the only answer. Your vote on June 16th is important. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you want the same thing over and over again, elect a career politician. If you want different results, somebody who can take your issues to Washington and not bring the stupidity of Washington back here to you, the people of Alabama, send a warrior to Washington, elect Jared Hudson. Vote for me on June 16th. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. All right, Barry, 1 minute.
Often in politics, there's a lot of rhetoric and there's a record. And so people can say what they're going to do. I have been in the fight. I have seen it time and time again. I served in a state legislature where people ran as conservatives, and they got there and the systems got their hooks in them. I've seen it with the Dan Crenshaws of the world. Other guys who come into Washington, D.C., and they're going to fight, and then the system gets to them, guys. The lobbyists, the special interests. Not ever in my career have I been called an insider. I'm a member of House Freedom Caucus. I got the highest liberty score. Heritage Action literally just scored 435 members of the United States Congress. There were 11 in the nation that got an absolute perfect score. I'm not talking about rhetoric. I'm talking about my record. I got a perfect score. 11 guys. So people are going to run and say, well, I love President Trump. I'm going to help President Trump, or I'm going to vote conservative. Look at my record. The most conservative member in the Alabama delegation, an ally to the president. The president has endorsed me because he's seen me in the fire. He's seen him bring the heat. I've never bowed down. And when the president endorsed me, he said, Barry's a good friend. He's a fighter, and he will not let you down. And I tell you tonight on June 16th, guys, Vote Barry Moore for the United States Senate. The president's got 24 months in November to do what we got to do to save this country. God bless you.
Thank you, Barry.
That's like my wife, man. I was turning my head, was turning.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, candidates, if you could stick around just a few minutes afterwards, we're going to get some photos up front, and then there'll be some photo opportunities in the back as well. Joan?
Hold on just one second. Let me,
Tilt down,
somebody's a
Joan.
little tall
There you
here.
go.
Okay, let me.